Hey, good morning. Happy game day and welcome into it. This is GameQuest, the Volquest Game Day podcast. I'm Eric Cain alongside Grant Ramey, and we kind of tie a bow on the week of preparation. Tennessee gets after it today, whether you're listening on Friday night, it'll be tomorrow, or Saturday morning, which is later today, 5 o'clock Eastern time, against Austin Peay. And Grant, it is what it is, man. This is nothing but a glorified scrimmage.
It is. No offense, Austin Peay. There's an Austin Peay on everybody's schedule. FCS teams. You go through the motions. It's a game day in theory and technicality, whatever it is. You know the Vol walk is going to be there. All the traditional stuff you kind of get out of the way. The home opener. So it is what it is, and it's an opportunity to probably play a lot of guys a lot of minutes in the second half and get some experience for those freshmen out on the field on Neyland Stadium on game day to get kind of used to that surrounding and that environment. So, it's a glorified scrimmage. No offense to the Govs, but it is what it is.
We'll get into a little bit about the Govs and some more football here in a moment, but probably the story of the day, right, is, the 51st anniversary of Condra Holloway breaking the color barrier as a starting quarterback, black starting quarterback in the Southeastern Conference. So Tennessee's throwing it back. And going to have some alternate smoky gray uniforms. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm showing some pictures up there right now. But, Grant, I'm not a huge uniform guy. Those are not my favorite, but they don't look bad.
Listen, when I saw them, when the leaks happened with, like, them on retail racks, the jerseys that are going to be sold publicly, was not a fan at all. When they were announced Monday morning and they had the photo shoot with Joe Milton and all that stuff, and they kind of explained what was going on here, it made a lot more sense, and I kind of came around to them a lot more because they got the orange shoulders like Condra Holloway wore during his day. They got the thinner helmet stripe. They got the gray face mask. They got the 2 pant stripes. And they have this smoky gray series that they announced last year where they have to wear a version of this uniform at least once a season for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
I guess they're in the second year of it, and it could go beyond that. But they're going to have a different variation of the smoky gray uniform each season. So it does make sense to kind of honor Condra Holloway on the 51st anniversary to the day, which is pretty cool. And it's kind of a throwback, but it's obviously not a throwback because it's smoky gray. So it's kind of a combination of new school, old school. I thought it was a pretty cool kind of solution they come up with for this season.
And because there's so much going on and there's a lot of distractions, I mean, it just is what it is. It kind of works out well that it falls on Austin Peay.
Right. It's something interesting, I guess, Saturday. It's been interesting to talk about and look at the last couple of days this week when there's not a ton of, talking about the actual game and what's going to happen on the field on Saturday against Austin Peay. It's cool to kind of have something to, look at and talk about and kind of just break down, discuss. People argue about whether they love it or hate it or indifferent.
All right, so Tennessee and Austin Peay coming up Friday at 5 o'clock Eastern time. It's that one game of the year that's going to be streamed, so it's going to be on the SEC Network Plus. It's going to be on ESPN Plus. If you turn on the SEC Network or the alternate channel or ESPN, you are not going to find it. So just be prepared for that. Go ahead and subscribe and get one of those things, and then you can cancel it the next day. That's what my dad's done the last couple of years. But it's going to be a stream game, and the biggest story from this week has not been Austin Peay. It's been about some injuries for the University of Tennessee, and we found out on Wednesday morning, as Volquest first reported, that Keenan Pili is going to be out for a little bit. You had Josh Heupel on Vol Calls Wednesday evening. He was asked about the injury for Keenan Pili. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, we hate it for Keenan, hate it for us too, but most of all for Keenan. Another guy that comes in the transfer portal. As a player, he's better than I anticipated. Continued to grow in just his football movement. He's extremely smart and bright. Excuse me. But became a great team leader, too. He's really mature. He came in and worked for it and then grew to have a voice. And I hate that for us on the defensive side of the football. Anticipate, as we go over the next couple of weeks, we'll kind of figure out what the timeline is for him. Hopefully we're able to get him back here in the middle part of the season. But someone that you just hate it for. He was excited. He wanted to play inside of that stadium. Sure. He wanted to go through Vol Walk, and you hate that he's not going to have the opportunity here for a couple of weeks to not be on the field with us.
Yeah, it kind of sucks, Grant. I mean, it sucks whenever someone's going to miss extended period of time. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks at minimum. And Josh Heupel said doesn't think it's season ending, and you've done a couple of write-ups on that, and that's great. Didn't know the severity of it, but when the season or when the week started, I mean, this is the guy that got the game ball against Virginia. It was one game, but you had heard great, just like Jalen Wright, not to the extent of Jalen Wright, but you had heard so many great things about Keenan Peely over the summer into fall camp. You got to see him flying around. I mean, the dude is 240, and he was showing athleticism and speed out there on Saturday against Virginia. So it's unfortunate. Wanted to see him play, but it's next man up mentality, and we'll see if Keenan Peely can be back later in the season. There's still a pretty big-time football game in the month of November that you'd love to have Keenan Peely back for.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because he's probably only here for a year. I mean, you look at his age, you look at his college football experience, he's not got a ton of tread left on the tires or, whatever college football left ahead of him. So you wanted him to be able to play as much as he could in this season at Tennessee. And in terms of like what we heard about him during fall, I mean, his name was as popular as any name throughout camp. And what kind of stuck out to me there from Heupel was when he says better than I anticipated. That was like the main talking point with Keenan Peely was you brought him in because he's a veteran, because he's got a ton of experience. He's going to be a guy that can help lead your defense. And then they got him here, and he turns out to be a way better athlete than they thought he was, and a guy that could run, a guy that could play in space, that could cover backs out of the backfield, stuff like that. So he was probably the biggest off-season surprise in terms of who you thought you were getting versus maybe who you got once he got here. So for him to be out an extended period of time, it sucks. And I think what you have to emphasize there with Heupel is he's talking about we're going to reevaluate in a couple weeks and then go from there. So it does feel like it's going to be a while. You never know with Heupel. He's always going to throw out random time frames, and who knows if those are ever going to be accurate. But I think it's pretty important to note that they're going to wait a couple weeks, then they're going to reevaluate, and then they're going to see. So it's going to be a while.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's the way he said that. It's this is not a couple week thing. This is a couple of weeks, and then we're going to say, all right, so what's the timeline from here? Essentially,
right?
That's what he's saying here. So, I mean, could it be 3 or 4 weeks? It absolutely could. Could it be 6 weeks? It could. But again, Josh Heupel does note that he does not believe it's season ending. So hopefully, at some point this year, you're going to get Keenan Peely back, and who knows? Maybe Tennessee's making a push, to go to Atlanta. Maybe Tennessee's making a push to a New Year's Six bowl game. That could be a great late season call up, if you will, Grant.
Yeah, for Keenan's sake, you hope Tennessee has as much to play for in November as Tennessee had to play for in November last year. If that's the case, that would be awesome to be able to plug him back into the defense and let him kind of have the ending, I guess, everybody would want him to have.
Another note on a big-time injury, a guy that Tennessee's been without for a month to the day. I believe it was Wednesday of this week. Minor procedure, that would be Cooper Mays. Josh Heupel again asked about Cooper Mays. Josh Heupel provides a little bit more on Cooper Mays the other night at Volquest.
Yeah, Coop, he's been with us on the field. We will not play him in this one, and that's just in preparation for the following week. Make sure that he's 100%.
It sounds like Cooper Mays is going to play against Florida. I mean, again, we joke about how Heupel doesn't tell us anything. He flat out just said, hey, Cooper's going to play against Florida. We're going to make sure he's ready to go.
That was some candor. I don't know if he slipped in some candor because it's FCS week and it's Austin Peay, and you can just go ahead and say, no, we're not going to play him this week. But for him to not only say he's not going to play in this one, and we're going to try to get him 100% for the next one, which everyone knows is at Florida at Open SEC play Saturday night, the 16th. So for him to go that far to say that, yeah, it's almost like somebody hit him with some truth serum, and we actually got some candor out of it.
Boy, what a first game back though, right? I mean, you're Cooper Mays. He's as Josh Heupel would say, he's been out there on the grass this week, which has been good. Not going to play Saturday, but you think the focus for him is number one, getting healthy and all that, but trying to get his butt back in shape as much as he can the last couple of weeks or the last couple of days. And then you're going to go on the road where it's going to be loud. You're not going to be able to hear. Again, the tempo of this offense. It's going to be quite the task for Cooper Mays, first game back. But Tennessee would take Cooper Mays back in a heartbeat any game. Well, that's how much he means to this offense.
Right, and you don't worry about Cooper on the road because of his experience and because of how much college football he's played and how many starts he's made. And, he's probably seen a little bit of everything in his time at Tennessee. I think the more concern there is the other 4 offensive linemen. I mean, obviously Javonte Spraggins beside him. He's a guy that he's used to playing with Cooper, but it's just that 5 wide as a whole, everybody being on the same page, and you're kind of throwing everybody out there together really for the first time, that offensive line that you want, that you've been looking for since Cooper went out at Florida, a night game at the Swamp in Gainesville. So no, it's not the most ideal scenario, but if you can get Cooper back, that's what you do.
All right, we got plenty more to get into as Tennessee takes on Austin Peay. We're going to break it all down here on GameQuest, what we liked from the Virginia game, what we're looking forward to in this game. Who is Austin Peay? I'll put out some of my notes here as the podcast goes on, but I want to tell you about our friends. That is PrizePicks. You go to prizepicks.com/VQ, that promo code VQ, and you're going to receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100. That means if you deposit $100, they're going to give you $100. If I deposit $50, they're going to give me $50 to play with, and it's a whole lot of fun. How does this work? Well, you pick 2 to 6 players, and if they go more or less than the prize pick projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. PrizePicks has generous promotion schedule, including weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday, Flex Friday, and a whole lot more. And you aren't competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections that are available. It's nothing but a total, guys. You're going to hit that over, that under, 2 to 6 players. And trust me, it's a whole lot of fun. So let's go ahead and take a look, and Grant and I are going to fill out what we're going to do for this week over at prizepicks.com. And again, you do prizepicks.com/VQ, and you're going to get $100 or 100 times 100% instant deposit match up to $100. So we got some projections here. All right, some of these are Thursdays, so exclude that. We're recording this before these Thursday games. But Grant, some of the talk of college football over the last week has been Colorado and Coach Prime and quarterback Sanders and all these other guys for Colorado. So I thought it'd be fun to put at least one Colorado pick in there. You got Shedeur Sanders, son of Coach Prime. Colorado's playing Nebraska. That's going to be an early game on Saturday, and it's kind of a trendy, popular pick that Colorado's going to keep this thing going. If we had Shedeur Sanders in here, are we going to say more or less than the 315.5 listed as passing yards?
We're going to say more because you never know when Coach Prime might be listening. We don't want to throw any bull junk against the wall and risk being called out. So if he did it, if Shedeur Sanders put 500 or whatever he did at TCU on the road, I'm going to assume he can do it at home against a first-year Nebraska coach in Matt Rule and his squad.
Shedeur Sanders believes, right? I mean,
he believes.
He believes for sure. Now, people covering the game don't believe, but he believes.
He's believed since the day he was born.
All right, let's stay in college football. Let's stay with these early games. Let's come to the SEC. Let's get Vanderbilt. It's going to be Vanderbilt against Wake Forest. It's going to be 11 a.m. local time kick. Wake Forest, of course, pretty solid program right now and where they're going. Vanderbilt, a big-time matchup, a big-time home matchup to try to make a statement a little bit here at the beginning of the season. Quarterback A.J. Swan, 230.5 passing yards against Wake Forest.
Under. Everything in my football knowledge says to go under when you got a Wake Forest and a Vanderbilt matchup.
See, everything in my mind would say over because, well, I mean, Wake is going to score a ton of points. And so if you're Vanderbilt, you're probably obviously playing from behind. It means you're throwing the football. So for me, I would say over. But that's me. If you're taking my advice, take the over. If you're taking Grant's advice, we'll take the under. And then we'll do one more just for fun here, okay? We'll do 2 more just because it's a big-time matchup coming up on Saturday. We've got Alabama and Texas, okay? Quinn Ewers, 272.5 passing yards, more or less.
Under. Night game at Bama. That's a big stage for Texas. Texas was pretty surprising against Alabama last year, so you think that would kind of even out a little bit this year now that they got to go to Tuscaloosa.
Jalen Milroe, 210.5 passing yards.
I'm going to go over just because that number's not terribly high. And I think Alabama at home on this stage, like I just talked about, is they're trying to make a statement. And Jalen Milroe is a guy that needs to make that statement to say that he's the man at quarterback.
He is, but, he also sucks with the forward pass. So, if he can run 5 touchdowns, he won't need to throw for 200 yards. How many games in a row can he do that against good competition? Who knows? This will be their first test against Texas here in week 2. So, looking forward to that one. So, in review here, we got Shedeur Sanders, more of 315.5. We got A.J. Swan, less 230 passing yards. We have less for Quinn Ewers on the road, 272.5, and we have more for Jalen Milroe at home, 210.5. And again, these are just quarterbacks. These are just passing. You can do rushing, you can do receiving, you can do passing, rushing, combination of all. You can go to another sport, NFL, go to soccer. We did soccer pick last week. Grant's a big fan of that. You got WNBA. Who doesn't want to bet on? Who doesn't want to jump in on some WNBA action here? You can get it all at PrizePicks.com. And again, go to PrizePicks.com. Enter the promo code VQ. 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Again, $100 you put in there, they're going to give you $100 all at PrizePicks.com/VQ. Go and have some fun here this weekend for week 2. Welcome back into the GameQuest. I am Eric Cain. That's Grant Ramey. This is the Volquest Game Day Podcast. Tennessee, Austin Peay. It's the home opener. It's throwback uniforms. It's also alternate uniforms with the Smoky Grays. It's a game that's going to be streamed. Kickoff 5 o'clock Eastern Time on SEC Network Plus and ESPN Plus. So we're breaking down this game as much as we can, but I mean, it is what it is, Grant. It's you hope, it's a glorified scrimmage, as we pointed out. You hope that a lot of the positives you saw from last week carries over into this week. That's kind of what you're looking for, some consistency out there on the football field against a team that's super inferior.
A fast start, exactly what you should do against this kind of competition. We haven't seen a ton from Joe Milton in terms of sample size of what he looks like as a starting quarterback in this offense. I guess it's just 3 games now, but not terribly fast starts in the last 2 against Clemson and Virginia. Obviously, they end up putting points up in both of those games and finding a rhythm a little bit later on. But just a faster start, a cleaner start. I don't think you have to see anything differently from this defense, exactly what they did against Virginia. If they can do that again, they'll be just fine. Cleaner special teams. That was kind of one of my bigger surprises from the Virginia game, just kind of the hiccups there. And I didn't really expect that. We saw cleaner special teams from them last year. So just be clean and just take care of business early and get your young guys on the field as quickly as you can and get them as much minutes as you can and build that kind of quality depth Saturday.
Yeah, Josh Heupel was asked, how can this team get better? How can this team improve from week 1 to week 2? This is on Vol Calls Wednesday night. Here's what Josh Heupel had to say.
Man, there's not one area, man. Offensive line, we can be a little bit better in finishing some of our blocks on our double teams as we combo up to linebackers. There's some things at the wideout position that we got to clean up. Could be alignments, could be how we're recognizing coverage. Joe can make smarter decisions at times when it's not right and get to a check down. Defensively, structure-wise, there's still some gap integrity stuff that we got to clean up on a couple of their big runs. There's some things in their pass coverage that we can continue to clean up. At this point in the season, coaches find a lot of things at every position group that they got to continue to get better at.
So, again, it's never going to be a perfect product. In week 10, week 11, it's never going to be a perfect product, but a lot of things to clean up. And something you mentioned there, Grant, special teams, it's been a huge talking point. We talked about it after the last game. We talked about it all week long. But what worries me is I'm not sure that Jackson Ross is going to get too many opportunities today, right? I mean, you don't want Tennessee punting, but then again, you kind of need Tennessee to be punting a little bit, but I don't think he's going to get much work.
No, you don't want him to go to Florida having kind of left off wherever he left off against Virginia. Now, he did have some good kicks against Virginia. Everybody sees the 17-yarder and whatever, the 16-yarder, whatever it was. I think he had a 50-yarder mixed in there, so it was mixed results. But yeah, it's against Austin Peay. You don't want to punt a ton, but you would like to get Jackson Ross some work because you're not 100% confident in what you saw out of him against Virginia. So I don't know, punt on third down a couple times maybe.
I know people would just want to see him, drop kick the football and get it away. I'm not a huge rugby style punt guy, but when it's clicking, when eventually it will be, because I think it's going to. I think he's going to be fine. He's really super good athlete. You can do so much. You can have so many different looks. You can really impact the game with that type of punter, rolling out left side, rolling out right side. The ability to just keep rolling and run the football if it's open. Maybe throw it at some point in time. I mean, right now you just need to focus on punting the football, and I get that, but there's opportunity there, and I think that's what Mike Eckler's really juiced about. Later on in the year, if you do some type of fake punt or a rollout from a guy that's pretty much a professional football player in Australia. Like that's you got to really really like your chances there towards the end of the season. But right now, just focus on punting the football.
Right. I mean, yeah. The problem is this was the first impression that Tennessee fans got of what this rugby style kicker was. He kind of ran to the right a little bit and then kicked it 17 yards, and obviously that's not what you want to see. And once you kind of get a little bit more used to seeing it, and he booms a couple of them, and you're like, okay, maybe this does work. I think that changes. But unfortunately for him, the first impression was he's this professional kicker from Australia. They bring him over here and he's kicking at 16 yards. Like that doesn't make sense. So don't change who you are. You brought him over here to be an Australian kicker. Let him do his thing. You just got to give him time to see the results happen.
I remember when Tennessee got his commitment, and I did the impact analysis, and I talked to one of his coaches at the Pro Kick Academy in Australia, and then I learned more about the Pro Kick Academy, and I learned that, this is really like a feeder system, and you have these Australian rugby players, these professional football players, and Australian football is very different from soccer. It's very different from American football. It's kind of its own thing. It's very different from rugby, too. I mean, it's different, and you have all these guys that, like, play for a couple of years professionals, in front of, thousands and thousands of screaming fans, and then you go to this academy and they teach you how to kick, and then they try to feed you to big time programs. And then from there you can go. I mean, there's guys coming from Pro Kick Academy in the NFL right now. It was really cool learning about the experience. So I'm rooting for this guy. We'll see exactly if he looks better today, but obviously that first impression was not good. What was a good first impression, was that front four on the defensive line. That's something I'm hoping to see a little bit more of today, some more consistency. And, Josh Heupel spoke on that at Volquest as well. I think he was really impressed with his defensive line from game number one.
The front four is where it starts for me. They were playing vertical. They were playing on the edges. I showed the team a clip on Monday in our team meeting. There's one clip. They're running outside zone. We got 4 defenders that are 4 yards back with the guy that's blocking them. After 2 steps, they just played relentless. They played with energy, but they played with great technique too. And you could see that with all of the guys that played. We played a bunch of guys, and most of them had between 20 and 30 snaps. And, I thought then outside of the run game, they affected the quarterback in the pass game too. And everybody sees the stats, the tackles for loss and the sacks. But I thought our second and third levels did a really good job in the run game too, fitting everything up, tackling well in space for the most part. And I thought our pass defense was solid. We played with good technique on the perimeter, and then obviously we just got after the quarterback too.
Grant been talking a lot of defense this week, and we truly don't know how good this defense is going to be until, we see it consistently over the course of a season, but until, that Florida game. We knew Virginia was going to be awful. Austin Peay is not going to be a challenge in this football game, so we don't know if, Tennessee's defense is good, but what we do know is they did a lot of good things. And it looked like they're creating good habits. And a lot of those things, even in week one, weren't present last year. A lot of good things from that defense against Virginia. And you hope that they have a field day today.
It's almost like check in at halftime at the Swamp, see what the score is, what the defense looks like, and then maybe you'll have a little bit more of a feel better gauge about what they can be. But, yeah, I mean, what we saw from Virginia against Virginia was extremely impressive. I mean, James Pierce Jr., what he is able to do in that first quarter with those couple sacks, that was huge. It was interesting to hear Tim Banks say on Tuesday, I think it was, the first game's over. Nobody cares about the first game. Show me you can do it consistently and do it more. For him to get a couple more sacks early against Austin Peay, I think that would be huge. And it goes linebackers too. Elijah Herring, he's the backup middle linebacker. You talked about next man up when we were talking about Keenan Peely earlier. He's the next man up. Aaron Carter played 18 snaps. He's the on the weak side depth chart at linebacker. You got to get him some snaps. You got to get Elijah Herring out there a ton to see what he's going to be for the rest of the season.
And again, it's hard to cut you off there, but it's important. Me and Austin kind of talked about this on the post-game pod, but I mean, it is what it is. Those are interchangeable. So just because Aaron Carter says weak side linebacker, if say, Elijah Herring got hurt, he would go in, or, whatever the case is, those are taught to be interchangeable. It's just game one. They just kind of stuck it to the structure. Anyway, Elijah Herring and Aaron Carter, time to step up and see what you can do.
Right. You're not asking a right-handed guy to play left-handed or a left-handed guy to play right-handed, something like that. So, and this is what this week is for, is to see what some of those young guys are. And you don't just have to play them 18 snaps like you did against Virginia. You can give them the entire second half if you're an Aaron Carter, Elijah Herring, or maybe he starts and plays a ton. So use this to see what these younger guys are and if they can do it consistently, and maybe what this defense can be and how deep it can be.
All right, Grant, be honest. Have you done any type of scouts on Austin Peay?
I read the first glance with Cain.
Nice.
If you've ever heard of him. All I know is they were decimated by the portal because what has to be miserable FCS existence for coaches is you want good players, but you don't want too good players because somebody's going to come poach them. So you kind of got to find that middle ground of really good players that probably aren't going to make the move up. So that's what's unfortunate for these programs. You get good guys and they're productive, and then they move on because they earn the next opportunity. So all I know is they've been hammered by the portal.
You know, we were talking with Chris Lowe the other day when we were taping the Rocky Top Roundtable over at Channel 8, and he made the comment like credit Elko and Duke for. I mean, this is the day after that Duke had that big win. He's like, credit Elko and Duke. I mean, they held on to guys. You know, teams were trying to come and get their guys, and they held on to guys. Imagine a Power 5 program, you know, kind of lower in the conference. Nobody really cares about football like a Duke. People are trying to poach your players there. Then just imagine an FCS. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, we're looking at Austin Peay here. Your quarterback comes back. Your number 1 receiver, your number 2 receiver, your number 3 receiver, gone. Your 2 all-conference defensive tackles, gone. Your leading tackler at linebacker, your second leading tackler, your third leading tackler, gone. I mean, if I was an FCS football coach, I would consider a career change because it's almost like you got to start over every single year.
Yeah, and you better know what you're getting into, and you better be a very good talent scout evaluator to see guys that are maybe a little bit under the radar that you could think could come in and have this opportunity to play at this level and to stand out and to earn their opportunity at the Power 5 level or wherever the next level is for those guys. And you better build your classes that you better stack classes with underrated guys that you think can come in, and because you're, like you said, you're starting over at wide receiver if you're productive there. You're starting over on the offensive line if you've got good stats there. You're starting over anywhere that you have a ton of success. So you better have them lined up and ready to go with whoever's next. And
this is a team that was pretty decent last year. Second in the Atlantic Sun, third year for Scotty Walden, who's the head coach. Best defense in the league last year, 22.7 points per game, led the conference. Gave up on average 317 yards of total offense. That led the conference. Again, best defense in the conference. Offense, you know, 4th or 5th, 31 points per game, so they could score some points. Really good run team from a season ago, 890 yards on average a game for the offense. And you did return your top 2 running backs, which was a good thing, C.J. Evans and Javon Jackson. But against Southern Illinois, was not great. 49-23 is how you lost. You played on the road week 1. At one point in time, Grant, you had Austin Peay that was down 35-0 in the third quarter. Give them credit. They scored 20 in the fourth and, you know, made the final outcome look a little respectable. But they were getting their tails whipped, turned the football over 3 times. They were 3 of 12 on third downs. I had a combined rushing yards of, I want to say, like 56 in this game. They got whipped a little bit in week 1 and expect a lot of the same in Neyland Stadium.
That's another part of the FCS life, I guess, is going on the road and some of these bye games and getting your money and kind of getting thumped a little bit, getting pushed around. So, yeah, to get down 35-0 at Southern Illinois to start it, not the way you want to start a season, and then you have to somehow rebound from that and go to Neyland Stadium and see what you can do. But I'm sure this part of the year is just about developing their team just like it is any other Power 5s trying to develop their team early in the season.
Well, let's have some fun with this question. The offensive line for Austin Peay against Southern Illinois gave up 4 sacks. If we're over at Prize Picks right now, we're going to hit them more or less. Does Tennessee get 5 sacks, or does Tennessee not get 4?
Way over. It's got to be way over. Surely.
Because you had 4 against Virginia, so it better be way over, right?
If James Pierce can get 2 in the first quarter against Virginia, you would assume he could probably get 2 against Austin Peay, and his teammates could combine for 3.
All year long, by the way, it doesn't matter if he does anything the rest of the year, but all year long, we're going to be like, yeah, if James Pierce could just get back there. I mean, he was so good against Virginia. If he can just get us a couple, you know, in the second or third quarter,
we're back
going to be set up for failure.
We're back to first impressions. He got a couple sacks, and he had a couple quick moves. He had that inside move. He had that little speed rush. And you got Jackson Ross just dancing around the backfield and kicking at 16 yards. That's the two ends of the spectrum on the first impressions.
All right, so way more on the 4 sacks. So Tennessee defensively is going to get more than 4 sacks. I agree. That offensive line blocked for 1.7 yards per carry. Will that Austin Peay average less than 1.7 yards per carry against Tennessee?
I mean, I got to say yes. If I say no, I'm an idiot. And to think that Tennessee's defense can't be more productive against Austin Peay than Southern Illinois' defense. I don't know if it was the 85 Bears that the Salukis got, but surely Tennessee could at least do that or better.
I mean, keep in mind, though, 1.7 yards per carry is pretty tough to accomplish. I mean, that's not very good.
True. No, but you got to factor in sack yardage too, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
no, you do.
Football takes sacks off the net rush, so factor those in and maybe it happens.
One of my favorite stats about Saturday against Virginia was at the end of the first quarter, Tennessee – at the end of the first quarter, Virginia had negative 23 yards rushing.
It's hard to do. I think did they have 2 total yards at the end of the first quarter?
Oh, I don't know about that. I was just looking at rushing, but that would make sense.
At one point, they had 2 total yards because I asked somebody sitting near me which yard that Virginia gained was their favorite from the first quarter. So maybe that was –
You're so funny.
I can't remember. I know. Appreciate it.
So funny, so funny. All right, what does Josh Heupel think about Austin Peay, some of the challenges that Austin Peay can potentially – I mean, a lot of this is Coach Peay, guys. I asked him this on Monday for the first glance. But here's what Josh Heupel – one of the few quotes Josh Heupel has on Austin Peay this week.
Defensively, got to handle tempo. They'll spread the football field. RPO game, you got to do a really good job on perimeter screens, defeat blocks, and make tackles in space. Line of scrimmage will be everything for us. Offensively, going to have balance and be able to run the football and throw the football vertically down the field off of all of that. Nothing different than who we are. Special teams, got a chance to take another step this week. There's some really positive things. I think we had 13 freshmen that were playing on teams. Thought they did a really nice job. There's another step for those guys, obviously, as young as they are in their career. But, our specialists, there's some really good things. We just got to be more consistent.
All right, Grant, bold prediction time. Give me some bold predictions for today. I don't think Jackson Ross is going to get many opportunities, but D. Williams probably should. So can we get a D. Williams house call? I'll take that one. D. Williams house call. He's gonna take one, whether it's kick or punt. He's gonna take one to the house.
If they punt to him,
true,
he's gonna take one to the house if he gets an opportunity. A bold from me. Nico 3 touchdowns, 1 rushing, 1 passing, some combination. He's gonna do both and end up with 3.
When does Nico come in?
I'm thinking Joe's first half, Nico's second half, and just kind of cut and dry, make it easy like that. I don't know. Maybe the score is so out of hand after the first quarter that you get Nico in at some point before halftime. But I would say first half Joe, second half Nico.
I said this I think it might have been one of the podcasts this week, but I would really like to see Nico get work with the first group offense. I would.
That's a slippery slope though, because when people see it, they're like, "What's going on with Joe? Is Joe being benched? What's going on here?"
Guys, let's use our MF and brains here, all right? Come on. If it's 35-0 with 8 minutes in the second quarter, I don't think it'll be that bad that early. But say it's like 35-0 midway through the second quarter, okay? Put Nico in with the first group, get Joe out, and there's no quarterback controversy.
You're introducing a quarterback controversy by doing that. People are going to wonder what's going on here. Why is Joe out? Why is Nico in? This is the first team, second team.
Right?
You can't assume logic. You can't assume people are going to connect dots. So just, I don't know. I think you make your life easier if you're Tennessee if you just run them second team.
Yeah, well, I think it's,
because this is the same fan base that was chanting for Nico in the third quarter against Virginia on Saturday at Neyland Stadium when it was 42-10, or maybe that was early fourth quarter.
I thought that was kind of neat. I thought that was
obviously
cool.
I know what I'm saying is they're clamoring for him, and they can't wait for the Nico era to officially arrive. If you put him with the first team, they're going to start wondering, like, wait, is this the Nico era? Is Joe already getting fired? What's going on here?
I view that as like, hey, Nico, you're here. Let's see you play. Yeah, backup quarterback, QB2. I don't know.
Maybe. There's something about the toothpaste getting out of the tube, though, that once it's
you're
out
right.
there,
you're right.
It's hard to take back. So we'll see what happens.
Final score prediction.
Oh, Tennessee 59, Austin Peay 10.
So I've been told that the FCS lines don't come out until Saturday morning. I'm a part of a pick'em segment,
Hang on, stop the presses. We get FCS lines? I thought they didn't
apparently I
exist.
didn't know that was a thing, but I was told it's Saturday morning.
Oh man, when you see it, you're gonna have to send it to me. You realize this, okay?
But the line, I'm a part of a pick segment on Fridays, but the line that I was sent for this game was literally 50 in the hook.
Oh my goodness.
So like and again, I hate large spreads like this because again, what if Nico and the twos go in and play like two and a half quarters, and they score some touchdowns, but I mean they don't score at the pace. Like that's okay. You're still winning convincingly, but you might not cover. So,
or if Austin Peay scores 2 touchdowns in the final 10 minutes against Tennessee's walk-ons, basically. Yeah. I mean that could ruin your cover 2 right there.
I don't think Austin Peay is going to score more than a touchdown. You're right. Like maybe 10 points. I kind of like that, especially when you have, some 2s and 3s and on down the depth chart guys later in the game. I think Tennessee does get in the 60s though, because Tennessee was, if Ramel Keaton catches that and D. Williams doesn't fumble, Tennessee's probably going to score again. I know you can't guarantee stuff, but look how close Tennessee was to having nearly 70 points.
What's absurd, and I've went back during the Heupel era and kind of counted up the number of times it's been 30 or more, 40 or more, 50 or more, 60 or more. I don't remember what the numbers are off the top of my head.
You're like on those Sports Center commercials. You're like Albert, just a freaking machine.
Practically bankrupted a casino, to quote Allen and the Hangover. But Tennessee's offense didn't even really they looked out of rhythm pretty early on, and it looked like it was going to be a struggle. And then they score 7 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns or whatever it was, 5 or 6 in the span of 8 drives. And suddenly you've got 49 points and you're talking about, well, you probably could have scored 70 if you took advantage of some opportunities. It's crazy how much they pile up points, and we just kind of take it for granted that, they didn't really play all that great and fire on all cylinders offensively, and they still had 49 points.
I'm going to go Tennessee 73, Austin Peay 10. And again, just like you said, I think they score a lot in a quick amount of time, and it doesn't feel like it's getting piled on. It's just how the nature of this offense. One of my favorite things, and we're about to call quits here. I know it's game day; people got to get up and go to their tailgates and everything. One of my favorite things about Week 1 was, like you said, Tennessee got the football, marched down the field, scored. Great start. 4th and 5 from the 9. Let's go for it. Great start. Tennessee then turns it over on downs on a 4th down call I didn't agree with. Maybe that's hypocritical, but when you're on your own 29, let's be smart here. And then you punt 3 straight possessions. It's like, daggum, what's going on? And you really felt like you needed some juice offensively heading into the break. Tennessee goes down, scores. Tennessee goes down and scores, and bam, it's a brand new ball game, 21-3. It's that fast. It's that quick. Things can always change.
Yeah, I think we, the people covering the team, and Tennessee fans, got so accustomed to seeing Hendon Hooker get that fast start, that 21-point, 28-point first quarter.
Yeah.
And it's just not like that. It hasn't been like that with Joe. That was a great first drive and a ballsy 4th down call, and they went for it and they got it. And that was great. But there have been some quick 3-and-outs. We saw it against Clemson. We saw it against Virginia. What I do like about it is they've responded from those 3-and-outs, and they've still found offensive success, and they've scored enough points, obviously, to win both of those games pretty comfortably. But I think it's just a fact of life until we see something different, that there's going to be some 3-and-outs, quick 3-and-outs, back-to-back 3-and-outs, where it looks like they're out of rhythm and they're just not quite what they look like under Hendon Hooker, because it's going to be hard to replicate what they looked like under Hendon Hooker.
All right, we've talked about all we can possibly talk about for this Austin Peay game, which is fine. Again, there's one of these every single year. It's going to be a glorified scrimmage. It's going to be Tennessee versus Tennessee. It's going to be the home opener. It's going to be fun to be back in Neyland, see the home crowd. It's going to be great seeing those uniforms and celebrating Condors Holloway. It's going to be a fun day. It is. So if you're going to the game, hope you enjoy it. I hope you stay safe and have a great experience. Let's quickly, before we say goodbye, let's pick a game around the SEC to kind of highlight just real quick. Tell me your thoughts. What's going to happen? Doesn't have to be a lot of hashtag analysis. What's going to happen with Texas and Alabama?
I think Alabama wins. I think people talk about Texas being back all the time, and I'm not sure it's happened yet. And I think Alabama, people just kind of disregard Alabama this season. They don't think they're going to be that great, and it feels like when that happens is when Saban goes 14-1 and wins a national championship. So week 2 at home, night game. They haven't had this kind of non-conference home game in a long, long time. Huge stage, huge opportunity for Alabama to make a statement. I'm sure Nick Saban will make them feel like they've been disrespected, and I think they win that game pretty convincingly, just because I feel like everybody's kind of too far on the Texas side, not far enough on the Alabama side.
Grant Ramey, huge horns down guy. All right.
Don't clip, and they're going to clip that if Texas wins, and it's going to be clipped. I'm going to be the biggest idiot in the world, but it's whatever. I was an idiot before. I'll be an idiot after.
If Quinn Ewers didn't get hurt last year, I mean, if, ands, buts, I get it. But if he didn't get hurt last year, I mean, we're probably talking about a different outcome, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I remember watching that game. I think, where were we at? Pittsburgh, in the press box at Pitt.
We weren't coworkers or friends at the time, but we were at Pittsburgh.
Mortal enemies. And I was thinking, man, where does this Texas team come from? And I was like, yeah, Tennessee's probably going to beat this Alabama team at home. Jalen Hyatt's probably going to score 5 touchdowns, 52-49. It's going to be a knuckleball that wins at walk-off field goal. So it was easy to tell at that point.
I talked to a Tennessee parent the night before when we were at the baseball game. And I said, so-and-so, your son, what have they said about this Pittsburgh, what have they said about this Pittsburgh defense? And he's like, just typical, small, slow safeties. Oh, Tennessee's going to have a field day. And, Tennessee did a lot of good things that day. But I remember, that night I'm like, Pittsburgh's not too shabby, at least for Tennessee here. That was a big-time win early in the season.
It was, and, I mean, overtime on the road. I don't know how great that Pittsburgh team ended up being, but it started something pretty special for Tennessee, that's for sure.
All right, let's see how special this final score can be here. Coming up today, Tennessee and Austin Peay, the home opener. You got Smokey Grays, you got alternates. You're going to be celebrating Condredge Holloway, 51 years to the day when he broke the color barrier as a starting quarterback in the Southeastern Conference. Really, really awesome stuff. Stop by and see those statues just outside of Gate 21. Help me out here. You got Condredge, you got T, got a couple other really nice, prominent VFLs that are out there and what they've done for Tennessee, and not just Tennessee, but breaking down barriers in the Southeastern Conference. So stop by, see those, celebrate, and it should be a great atmosphere at Neyland Stadium today.
It's gonna be fun. Enjoy it. How long have we been waiting for a home game at Neyland Stadium? It's been a while.
It has been a minute. For Grant Ramey, I am Eric Cain. Appreciate you guys for listening to GameQuest right here at Volquest.com.